She remembered the night clearly, as if it were engraved into her bones. The rain had fallen hard against the window of her small bedroom, tapping in rhythmic desperation as though the world itself wanted her to listen. 17 years old, with nothing but a fraying notebook and dreams far too large for the life she had been handed, Evelyn sat on her narrow bed and stared at the photograph clipped from a magazine. A man in a crisp suit stood smiling beside his luxury car, his eyes sharp with ambition and his posture like someone who already owned the world. His name was Adrian Cole, the young, self-made CEO of Cole Enterprises. He had founded his company at 24, and in just a few years had risen to become one of the city's most influential millionaires. The article had called him ruthless, visionary, untouchable. But to Evelyn, trapped in a suffocating small town in a house that knew more shouting than laughter, Adrian Cole was more than a headline. He was the symbol of everything she longed for: freedom, power, the kind of life where no one could dictate her worth. That night, staring at his picture while thunder rumbled outside, she whispered a vow into the silence: one day, I'll marry him. I'll find a way into that world, and when I do, I'll never be small again. Dreams were easy to make at 17. They required no logic, no roadmap, only hunger. Evelyn clung to that hunger as she worked through the grueling years that followed. She picked up part-time jobs while scraping through college applications, balancing trays at diners and folding clothes in discount stores while her classmates complained about math homework. She kept the torn magazine page folded carefully in her wallet, a reminder that her life would not end in mediocrity. The vow she had made was foolish, perhaps, but it was also the flame that kept her moving when exhaustion threatened to swallow her whole. By the time she was 21, Evelyn had managed to secure a partial scholarship and moved to the city. The skyscrapers blinded her with their glass reflections and the air tasted of ambition, and for the first time, she felt close to possibility. Yet reality was crueler than dreams. The city did not welcome her with open arms. Rent was merciless, food was expensive, and classmates who had grown up with privilege treated her as if she were invisible. There were nights she cried quietly into her pillow, her bank account nearly empty, her body aching from the long hours she worked just to keep her head above water. She wanted to quit, more times than she could count. But every time, she thought of that vow, of the 17-year-old girl who had refused to believe her life would be small, and Evelyn swallowed her tears and kept moving. She studied harder, she networked tirelessly, and she learned how to hide her vulnerability behind a steady smile. She told herself Adrian Cole had started from nothing too, and if he could climb, so could she. 8 years passed. She was 25 when the email arrived, the subject line bold and almost unbelievable: "Congratulations, welcome to Cole Enterprises." Evelyn stared at her laptop in stunned silence, the words blurring until her eyes stung. She had applied weeks ago on a whim, half believing her application would disappear into the void like so many before. Yet here it was, a job offer from the very empire she had once only seen in glossy pages. Her pulse raced. She thought of the vow again, how impossible it had seemed, how laughable, and yet fate had twisted her path to bring her directly under the roof of the man she had promised herself to all those years ago. She wasn't marrying him, not yet, but she was stepping into his world. That was the beginning. Her first day at Cole Enterprises was a blur of nerves and awe. The office tower loomed like a monument of ambition, its marble lobby echoing with the hurried footsteps of men and women in tailored suits. She felt small in her modest blazer, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her new employee badge. The 15th floor buzzed with energy, phones ringing and keyboards clattering in symphony. Evelyn was assigned as an assistant analyst in the finance division, far from the executive floor, but even being there felt like standing at the edge of destiny. She worked hard, too hard, determined to prove she belonged. Nights blurred into mornings as she reviewed spreadsheets, crafted reports, and volunteered for projects no one else wanted. Slowly, her supervisors began to notice. They praised her diligence, her eye for detail, her relentless drive. Evelyn told herself she wasn't just chasing Adrian anymore, she was building herself into the kind of woman who could stand beside him without apology. Still, the first time she saw him in person, it was as though time had folded back on itself. Adrian Cole was taller than she had imagined, his presence commanding in a way that made the air in the room tighten. His dark hair was threaded with the faintest silver, his eyes sharp and assessing as they swept over the conference table. He spoke little, but when he did, his words cut with precision. Evelyn sat at the far end, her heart thundering in her chest, afraid he would notice her trembling hands. He didn't. To him, she was just another employee, one of hundreds. And yet, as he left the room, she whispered silently to herself again, one day. The challenges came quickly, sharper than she expected. The corporate world was ruthless, and ambition was a double-edged sword. Evelyn faced colleagues who underestimated her, men who dismissed her ideas, women who whispered behind her back about her relentless climb. More than once, she stumbled, an overlooked error in a report, a presentation that fell flat, moments where she questioned if she truly belonged in this world of polished brilliance. And Adrian remained untouchable, a figure she could watch but never reach. She wondered if her vow had been nothing but a childish fantasy, if the distance between them was too great to ever bridge. But every time doubt crept in, Evelyn fought harder. She learned from her mistakes, rebuilt her confidence, and let the fire in her chest burn brighter. Her break came 2 years later, when a major project threatened to collapse under the weight of errors and mismanagement. Evelyn, almost recklessly, volunteered to step in. She worked day and night, correcting figures, smoothing conflicts, and presenting solutions that even seasoned analysts had overlooked. The project was saved, and for the first time, Adrian Cole himself acknowledged her. He stopped by her desk, his gaze steady and unreadable, and said, "Impressive work." 2 simple words, but to Evelyn, they were oxygen. She felt the ground shift beneath her. For the first time, she wasn't invisible to him. From then, their paths began to cross more often. Adrian noticed her sharp insights in meetings, her ability to stay calm under pressure, the quiet strength that set her apart. Evelyn, in turn, began to see the man behind the legend, the way his jaw tightened when he was deep in thought, the rare flickers of exhaustion that crossed his face late at night, the guarded kindness hidden beneath his stern exterior. He was not untouchable after all. He was human, and slowly, cautiously, a thread of connection began to weave between them. But life never unfolds in straight lines. Just as Evelyn began to feel the possibility of something greater, new challenges rose to test her. Rumors spread through the office about her closeness to Adrian. Whispers that she was using ambition to climb her way into his favor. Friends distanced themselves, rivals sharpened their knives. Evelyn's heart ached with the weight of it, torn between the career she had built and the feelings she could no longer deny. Adrian, too, carried his own burdens. The company faced crises, competitors circling like sharks, and his past mistakes threatened to resurface. Their bond, fragile and unspoken, was tested by forces larger than either of them. One evening, after a brutal day of accusations and losses, Evelyn found herself in the empty office, staring at the city lights through the glass walls. Adrian entered quietly, his shoulders heavy with the world's weight. For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and unbreakable. Then, softly, he said, "You remind me of myself when I started." Hungry, unafraid of the fire, Evelyn turned to him, her chest tight, and confessed what she had never dared to before. "At 17, I promised myself I'd marry you. Not because you were a millionaire, but because you represented everything I wanted to be. Strong, untouchable. But now I see, I don't want to be you. I want to be beside you. Equal." The vulnerability in her voice cracked something in him, something he had long buried. He stepped closer, his eyes no longer the CEO's but a man's, searching, open. "And what if I told you I need someone who can stand beside me, not behind me?" he asked. In that moment, the distance of years collapsed, and Evelyn felt the vow she had made as a girl transform into something deeper, something real. The road forward was not easy. They faced skepticism, betrayal from within the company, and the relentless scrutiny of the world outside. But together, they weathered it. Evelyn proved again and again that she was more than ambition. She was resilience, compassion, and strength. And Adrian, for all his power, learned that true greatness came not from standing alone but from allowing someone to share the burden. Years of struggle, doubt, and relentless pursuit led them to a place where love was not a prize to be won but a partnership forged in fire. By the time Evelyn stood once more by her window, now in a home of her own overlooking the city skyline, she thought back to that 17-year-old girl clutching a magazine page. That girl had wanted to marry the millionaire CEO because she thought it would save her from smallness. But the woman she had become understood the truth. She had not been saved by Adrian Cole. She had saved herself. She had fought, built, and bled her way into a life she could be proud of, and in doing so, she had found love, not as a desperate dream, but as an equal, a partner, a flame that burned brighter together than alone. And so, when she finally walked down the aisle years later, her heart steady and her eyes clear, it was not as a girl chasing a fantasy but as a woman who had fulfilled her vow in the truest way possible. She married the man, yes, but more importantly, she married the life she had always dreamed of. And the message of her journey was clear. No dream is too foolish, no vow too impossible, if you are willing to endure the fire it takes to make it real. Sparkle's final message for YouTube audience. Dreams may start as fantasies, fragile and impossible in the eyes of others. But with resilience, sacrifice, and unyielding faith in yourself, even the wildest vow can lead you to a destiny greater than you imagined. Evelyn did not just marry a millionaire CEO, she became the kind of woman who could stand beside one. And so can you.